still playing. There's more basketball left. It is, as I said, Monday morning post-selection show. You're listening to the Eye on Sports with Bball Jones. I am Bball Jones, Jay Brenner. Behind the glass today, the Eye on Sports. He does it all here, folks. He does dishes, cooks, cleans, runs the board.
As Booby Miles, his uncle, would say, he can snap the ball, make the hold, make the kick, score the extra point, and he can pass.
That's right. That is right. We've got, of course, the AAC tournament to recap. We have the NCAA tournament to preview. We have the NIT tournament to preview. We're going to be doing NIT bracket specials here. Get your picks in. We have.
Let me
please.
Let me interrupt if I may. Are you serious? You want to do NIT brackets?
No.
Good.
No.
I hope you were kidding about that.
No, I did win my AAC bracket, though.
You won against
myself.
Congratulations on that one, buddy.
I outperformed myself.
Yeah, well, we will require Mark to fill out a bracket when he comes back. We'll have brackets to be turned in on Thursday morning. Of course, as I mentioned on Friday, as I teased, we're going to have the first ever internationally sanctioned donut tasting championship with blind tasting championship. But Mark could not come today, so we're going to save that for tomorrow.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I won my bracket against myself.
That's good. What was that?
I played
something on your computer? Okay.
Yeah, it was allow myself to introduce myself.
I just want to allow myself to not make sure I'm not confused.
You're not hearing things?
Yeah.
Well, it is Monday morning. As I said, big week in the AAC tournament. Your Tigers came up just a little bit short in that semifinal game against Houston. They did certainly compete and maybe competed better than you thought they would after watching the first half. I was surprised they got back in it, made it a game. And you wondered if just maybe there was a little magic and they could pull it out. Of course, they did not. They had a couple of shots to tie the game late, and both of those shots did not go down, one by Jeremiah Martin, and then on the final play of the game, a couple by Tyler Harris. And so your Tigers fell up short. And I happen to believe had they won that game, Ira, that they would have been, I think they could have been in. They certainly would have had a reason to watch the selection show yesterday and anticipate a potential bid, because they would have then beaten a top 10 net team after having beaten Central Florida for the second time. They also beat Temple. So Yale, they beat Yale. So they've got wins against multiple teams that are in the field. And it was a great end to the season and the tournament for that team. They played their best basketball. I've always said, when you're judging a coach and you're judging a team, you want them playing their best basketball at the end of the year. And this team was unquestionably playing its best basketball at the end of the year. So kudos to them.
Kudos. You know, I don't think enough people still say kudos.
Kudos to the people that say kudos.
I'll give an anti-kudos to that, actually.
What is the anti-kudos?
I don't know, but kudos is like, yeah, it's welcome to the 90s, pal. We don't say kudos anymore.
Before we get out of here today, I want to talk to you about a little pet peeve regarding something I noticed over the weekend as I watched a decent amount of college basketball. A lot of our listeners are also interested in the SEC. Congratulations to the Auburn Tigers, winners of the SEC tournament, which was over in Nashville. Our Vols fans thought they were getting their first SEC tournament win since 1979. It's only been a mere 40 years since the Vols won the SEC tournament. Well, it's going to go 41 because they got run out of the building. They did, however, pick up a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, and I think a pretty nice little path to the Final Four. They got to get past Cincinnati.
Well, yeah.
Well, they got to get past your Colgate.
Whoa.
Yeah, please.
Just stop.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
We'll get to all that shortly.
Oh, you got something you want to get to right now?
I don't want to dive right into the brackets just yet. We got to finish.
Well, look, Ira, if I go down any road you don't want me going down, just pull me back like you just did, okay?
I'm doing
yeah,
that.
Thank you.
We're going to get to all the bracket stuff. We're going to break it down, of course. Jay, we also have to mention that the FC 901 played this weekend, the Express played this weekend, Memphis baseball, of course, this weekend, and the Grizz this weekend. So there's a lot of stuff was going on. Of course, nothing bigger than the AAC tournament and into the NCAA tournament. Question is this: I know we're a lot older now, and things are never quite as exciting as when you were younger and you had less responsibilities. But did you still get that nice, fuzzy, warm feeling when they were like, all right, and now the reveal of the brackets?
Well, I was on the road, so I didn't get to watch it.
Did you get to listen to it at least?
No, because our friggin' satellite radio is a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
No, it's garbage. You change the channel, it's like, oh, no signal.
That stings.
Yeah, it's garbage.
I was sitting there, and I was actually at my parents' house, and I was like, I'm really looking forward to a little Greg Gumbel and Clark Kellogg, and if Seth Davis even knows that nobody wants to hear Seth Davis, then how come CBS hadn't figured that out?
How does Seth Davis know it?
Because he said, all right, I'll stop talking. I know that's what you people want.
Yeah, some people are like, what is the wrestling term? The heel?
Yes, the heel, the baby face.
What is the heel?
The heel is like the bad guy.
Yeah, Seth Davis is like the bad guy.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Clark Kellogg is quite the baby face, but I don't really like him that much either. But he's tolerable.
So we can talk about the show, just not the brackets.
No, we can talk about the brackets. I just wanted to make sure that people know that we are going
to break them down extensively later.
We are going to mention the other stuff that's been going on. It was a very busy weekend in sports. You had the AAC tournament going on at the same time, and FC 901 was playing, which I did get to go to a good chunk of that game. My first experience.
How was it?
With professional soccer in Memphis.
Is it packed out down there?
Professional soccer. It was a good crowd. I don't know what the number was. You might be able to effort that with your Twitter machines and fancy computer stuff, but I would have to guess it was probably 6,000 or so, which is pretty good, very good.
Well, I'll tell you this:
they finally scored a goal. They ended up in a tie, which is okay. Also, it happens. So it was a nice crowd. It was a beautiful evening, and it was fun. They really got something going on there, I think.
I'll tell you what crowd was not impressive to anybody was that, it was loud. It was clearly loud. But the number of tickets sold for those AAC games, and I'm fine with it. I understand they were expensive tickets. Apparently they weren't easy to get. So if you didn't want to spend $65 or whatever it was, $85 or $100 to go sit down low and watch the Tigers, and instead you decided to watch them on TV, I've got no problem with that. But just do me this favor. Don't tell me that the AAC tournament should always be in Memphis because Memphis fans are crazy and they buy all the tickets. Because it's not true.
I agree. No, it's definitely not true.
It's just not true, and it's never been true. It's never been true. It wasn't true in the CUSA tournament. Maybe it was true in the Metro in the 80s at the Coliseum. But it has never been true in my memory and in recent memory that Memphis fans buy up all those tickets and go to the games. Because in the games that didn't have Memphis, there were less than 3,000 people there. And in the Memphis games, looked like maybe 8. Maybe. Did you go?
I went on Thursday and Friday. It looked like they had decent crowd on. I thought Thursday was actually better than Friday.
That's what Giannato said.
Yeah, Thursday was actually better than Friday, and I don't know about
Which is
Saturday.
to say, like, approximately how many? I don't know what they announced.
I would say in the 8.
Okay. See, that's not bad. See, and again, that's not bad. It's probably better than you get up in Hartford or in Orlando or maybe anywhere else. But just don't tell me, they sell all the tickets, because they don't. But that's good. And look, let's talk about the basketball for a minute. Great effort on Friday. They kicked UCF's took us.
Yeah.
And you didn't know that they would. Go ahead.
Did you think that after they kicked UCF, in the hindquarters on Friday. Did you think that might have been the end for UCF's NCAA bid?
Well, I'm not familiar with their body of work, Ira, but
got a great body.
My understanding was that they were in, and the same with Tipple, and both turned out to be true because neither one of them did much in the tournament. Cha-ching.
Sorry.
But they both made it in, so that's fine. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I'm glad that there are 4, AAC teams in. I just thought, yeah, like you said, I wasn't intimately familiar with their body of work, but I just felt like the way Memphis played them twice, out of 3 times, I was like, is this really an NCAA?
I think Memphis matched up well with them. They won. I do know this. They won at Houston about 2 weeks ago.
Really?
And that's a big win, conference-wise. And I think I know that Houston's big non-conference win was LSU. I know that.
Yeah.
And so Tipple always plays a tough non-conference schedule. Look, we'll see. But it was a great tournament. I happened to watch a lot of it. Greg Marshall, Wichita State, had a nice little run to the semis. They really turned it on late in the year. Great coach. They're in the NIT. Memphis, of course, 3 seed in the NIT. Before we get any further, go get your tickets. They play at home tomorrow night against the San Diego Toreros. And I will say this, smaller crowds for these tournaments.
Holy cow.
But loud. They were loud in the AAC, and I think they'll be loud however many tickets, and there's cheaper tickets for the NIT. I think it'll be a great crowd and a great night. And look, a lot of people talked, and I'll put the question to you, Ira. Here's the question.
Okay.
Would you rather lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament or win the NIT?
Every single time, I would rather lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament than do anything in the NIT.
Yeah, see, I agree with that. However,
I'm
very happy to be in the NIT.
No.
And some years I'm not, by the way.
See, I don't. Well, okay. There are circumstances when years that I would agree that I would not want to have been in the NIT even if we didn't get in the NCAA tournament. This team, I think, it's going to be a good stepping stone for the young guys to get that NIT experience. But yeah, I don't think there's really if people say, "Oh yeah, I got no problem if we get to the Final Four of the NIT that we didn't go to the NCAA tournament." Nobody cares about the NIT except for the teams that are in it.
No, it's true. I mean, the NIT is a tournament that, like, you come home from work on a Tuesday or a Wednesday and you flip on the TV at 5, and there's some game on, and you're like, oh my God, what is this?
And you only found it because there was nothing else on.
Right. You're like, oh, look, Arkansas at Indiana. I mean, so it's sort of like, it's kind of like a car wreck. Like, you drive by, you're like, oh, this is interesting. But it's not, you're right, it's not anything that anyone's going to remember.
Don't take anything away from it. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of teams in there that are big-name teams. They just didn't have good seasons. I mean, they're not great teams.
Oh, no doubt. And for like you said, for the teams that are in it, it's a great thing. And for the fans, look, I remember Calipari's second team that won the NIT.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And his first team that got to New York.
Sure.
I really enjoyed those runs. And I will enjoy this one. If they win tomorrow night and then they get to play at Creighton, I'll be very excited to watch that.
You enjoy good runs?
I've never pooped on the floor in a public
I enjoy...
Not out of rage.
I don't know who those people are. I enjoy any movement of any kind.
I like it.
All right, the Memphis 901 FC are averaging, after 2 home games, 7,656 people. That's good for 5th in the league.
But they're also an expansion team, so there you go. Jay, I'm looking at the NIT bracket quickly while we're on it, and we get off of it sooner than later. Memphis versus the Toreros. They would set up a second-round matchup with Creighton or Loyola Chicago. Now, certainly the NIT would prefer if that game were to be played in Memphis. Second-round game.
Why?
Because the size of the arena, I guess.
Creighton plays in an NBA-size arena, and they fill it up.
Really?
Yes.
In Omaha?
Yes. Creighton's attendance.
All right, so the question is this: should Memphis beat the Toreros on Tuesday night? Do you think that Memphis will be playing on the road? Or do you think they'll be playing at home?
It depends on if Creighton wins. The better seeded team gets to host. There's no mystery in the NIT. This ain't the 90s.
Wow, yeah, because that tells you how much I keep up with the NIT. So it really is so that the higher seeded team gets to host.
Yeah, okay. They organized all that. Creighton finished, by the way, 6th nationally in home attendance.
Really?
A few years ago. This is a little bit old, but
what else are you going to do in Omaha?
17,048, 17,000 fans a game. Yeah,
fantastic.
No, that's like the thing to do there.
Yeah. Well, that's good. You know, when the Huskers aren't playing football, I guess that's the only thing to do.
Yeah,
that's great for them. Then it's okay. Because, we were talking about whether or not that this NIT situation could affect a week from Tuesday's tilt at AutoZone Park between your University of Memphis baseball team and Ole Miss.
It's pretty optimistic. They'd have to win the first two.
No. The second round goes through the 26th. That's the last day of the second round games. So they said that if Memphis wins, and it's possible that Memphis could be playing a home NIT game at the same time as that baseball game.
It's possible, but I would think that
I don't know.
I would think they'd get Memphis in there this weekend. That the first round is probably the 19th, 20th, 21st. The second round becomes 20. You said through the 26th?
And that's next Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a long second round, but
anyway, who knows? Yeah, anyway, who knows? Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, I mean, all right, we'll do this in regard to the NCAA tournament. Before you and I start getting down into full breakdown mode, tell me if there anything that you thought was, there wasn't much scuttlebutt, I don't think, about teams getting robbed as far as not getting in. Did you hear much about that?
I heard nothing. Here's what I heard on the way. Once I gave up on this crappy satellite radio, or actually before it went out, I think, I caught some show with Rick Byrd of Belmont, who, by the way, I've said for a long time, every time Memphis changed coaches, I was like, they ought to at least try to go get Rick Byrd. And I thought Tennessee should have tried to get Rick Byrd a time or two in some of their coaching searches. I mean, all the guy does is go to the NCAA tournament at Belmont like every year or most years and runs a very entertaining style of play, and he's been there for 25 years. He's old now. Anyway, heard Rick Byrd, and he was talking about, we deserve to be in. Well, they got in. And then Temple is in that first four. And I guess the teams that got left out were UNC Greensboro or somebody?
Yeah, they said UNC Greensboro was on the bubble as an at-large team if they didn't win their conference tournament, which they didn't. They said that Indiana was on the bubble at 17.
Yeah.
And Mark's been saying for 3-4 weeks that they have no business being in the tournament. And he was right.
Yeah, well,
Alabama, I guess.
Yeah.
TCU.
No, thanks. Get out of here.
So really, those were the only teams that there was any discussion about. I kind of miss the days when CBS would be at schools, waiting to show them celebrate getting in.
They weren't doing that yesterday?
No, they did. But there would always be a couple of teams that
didn't get in.
Thought were on the.
Let's go to Jim Boeheim. Oh, I'm pissed. I don't know what we got to do. We beat 6 Big East teams at home. Well, Jim, you didn't leave the state of New York
until February.
Right. Well,
that's not true. We went to New Jersey.
Right. We went to the Garden. I mean, it's 2 hours or an hour from campus. Yeah, I remember that too. All-time losingest bubble coaches: Seth Greenberg, Jim Boeheim, and who?
Jim Boeheim's not wrong. He was usually in.
Usually, but he missed it several years and would complain.
Definitely Seth Greenberg.
Yeah.
Who else you got?
I'm trying to think. I don't know. We'll come up with it. Pete Gillen.
I don't know either.
We going to break?
Pete Gillen could be one as well.
Remind me when we get back. It'll just take a minute. I want to tell you my ESPN pet peeve du jour. You'll like it, I think. You'll like it. All right, boys and girls.
You got music playing on your end?
Yeah. Jackie Blue.
Okay.
It's coming through. We're going to break.
Yeah.
You're listening. One of the best days of the year, post-bracket reveal. It's March Madness, even if Memphis isn't in it. And that's why I'm glad we're in the NIT, because we're still part of the ether of March Madness, if you will. It's 8:22. You're listening to the Eye on Sports with Bball Jones. We will be right back.
Jackie Blue. There we go.
Check your headphones.
Nothing.
And respect. At E.H. Ford Mortuary Services, located 3390 Elvis Presley Boulevard, we believe the same thing should hold true when it comes to death. Telephone number is 345-9558. For more than 30 years, Ed Ford has offered the personal touch when it comes to the passing of the special people in your life. As a licensed funeral director, embalmer, and death counselor, Ed Ford will be involved in every phase of the bereavement process when it comes to your loved one. In other words, he won't just sit behind a desk and collect your money like other funeral directors. His main purpose is to personally prepare your loved one for whatever memorial service you desire. His services and prices are the very best in Memphis and the surrounding area. At E.H. Ford Mortuary Services, it's not about the money, it's about a lasting memory. Ed Ford, his wife Myrna, and the courteous staff will be there when you really need them. That's E.H. Ford Mortuary Services, located 3390 Elvis Presley Boulevard. The telephone number again, 345-9558. Not associated with any other funeral home with the same last name. That's E.H. Ford Mortuary Services. In life, we all want to be treated with dignity and respect. At E.H. Ford Mortuary.
Who, Shane? Yeah, I know what his answer is.
It's that time of year again. We're Just Cooling. Call Just Cooling Refrigeration for all your heating and air needs. They specialize in residential and commercial. For a complete listing of all the services that they provide, contact them at www.justoncooling.com. Again, www.justoncooling.com. They're licensed, bonded, and insured for over 18 years. Give them a call, 901-848-1772. You want to be cool? You know I do. Give them a call, 901-848-1772.
Don't buy wigs that come off at the wrong time. Maury's wigs don't come off, even underwater. And remember, Maury's wigs are tested against hurricane winds. Don't forget about money. You can afford a Maury wig, price to fit every budget. So call me now. And come in for a personalized fitting.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Eye on Sports with Bball Jones, brought to you by Maury's Wigs. Buy a wig that doesn't come off, folks. Ira's wig.
Does not come off at the wrong time. It's been tested against hurricane-proof winds, and we're next to the Sweet Lounge on Queens Boulevard.
That's right.
Don't neglect that.
You are listening to the Eye on Sports. It's March Madness. It's Monday, March 18th in the Bluff City. Your Tigers didn't get invited to the NCAA, but they are in the NIT. Ira, before we get any further, I want to tell you my pet peeve.
Well, I love a pet peeve.
You love a pet peeve? Mike Dunleavy, Ira, step into my office.
Oh, yeah, why?
Because you're effing fired.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, Mike Dunleavy, after going winless in the AAC in his third year on the job at Tulane, was fired. But here's my pet peeve. On the ESPN ticker, I read this. I want to get the wording right because it's important. Tulane and head coach Mike Dunleavy have parted ways. And then,
So what is your issue?
Well, I'm sitting here thinking, well, what did they drop him off at the train station? Like, did they drop him off at the airport? Is he catching a flight? What does that mean? Like, was he fired or did they mutually break up? And then I saw it with another coach. I'm trying to remember who, because I love the carousel. We'll get all these. But somebody else. UNLV and head coach Marvin Menzies have parted ways.
A fine example, you said.
Yeah, I mean, what is that? Like, what do we just don't, we don't want to hurt their feelings? Those dudes got fired, Ira. They got fired.
Well, the truth is, Jay, you know as well as I do, you're in the business community, as well as sexually active in other communities. You know first of all, there's a lot of things that involve perception. So if they say to Mike Dunleavy, look, Mike, you got a year left on your contract, and we're going to wait and see how you do next year. And Mike Dunleavy says you can either extend me or I can leave. And they say, well, we're not going to extend you. Okay, well, then I agree to leave.
That's not what happened.
Who are you? You're not in the meeting.
Ira.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying if you are in the public relations quagmire as being a basketball coach who's getting canned.
Well, time out. Before you go any further, because this is where you and I can differ sometimes. Are you arguing that happened or that it didn't? Let's put you on the spot. Do you think that happened? Or
No, not at all.
Okay. So let's operate on the hypothetical that they went in there and said, you're done. Like, we're going to pay you for the rest of your contract, but you're...
Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. You're not coaching here anymore. Because I think what you know as well as I do, you're right, not 100%, but likely happened, is that they said you're done. Or if they had said, look, we're not extending you, he'd say, okay, that's fine, I'll coach the final year, because these guys love to coach. That's what they do. Mike Dunleavy wouldn't be at Tulane if he didn't love to coach. It's not about the money, right? But anyway, so let's assume hypothetically, here's the question to you. Let's assume hypothetically they fired the guy, because they did. Who do you think made the decision to change the language?
Are you asking?
Like, how did that?
Are you asking me that if I think that CBS decided to put that on the ticker that way,
ESPN
or whatever?
Yes,
ESPN
that's what I'm asking.
Or
if Tulane asked for it to be put that way, or both.
If I have to guess, then I would say that Tulane, their public relations department, I would say they're the ones that put it out.
Pushed for it, and that UNLV also pushed for it, and that's just like the standard in the industry now. That somewhere along the way there was a meeting, and I'm by the way, I agree with you. Somewhere along the way there was.
Okay,
go ahead.
Here's what I'm saying. You got a coach that you thought was going to come in and do a great job. He didn't. You like him.
Yeah.
The next coach might take over and do well with his players. We parted ways. You got a guy who embarrasses your university. He's abusive to the players. He's abusive to the administration. He's abusive to his secretary. He got fired.
Here's my point. Or it's not really a point. Here's what I'd like to say. The godfather of our show is clearly George Carlin. One of the godfathers. In that he was great. And he's dead now. So let's give him that status.
Okay.
He had a whole bit about the softening and the erosion of our language. How words would soften over time. How toilet paper became tissue paper. And how shell shock.
Have you ever called it tissue paper?
No, but it's called that now.
It's called I thought it was called toilet tissue.
Maybe something. But how,
Whatever.
shell shock became post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, how we take language and we mangle it to make it sound softer. You know, how asylums became behavioral health centers and things like that. And now firings are becoming parting ways. It's dishonest is what it is. The guy got fired. They didn't part ways. They didn't drop him off at the... So if you want to be soft and hide behind... Yeah, that's why we have a sports talk show. But I'm not...
I don't know why that bothers you so much.
It doesn't bother me so much. It's just interesting to me. It's interesting to me because it's dishonest.
It's not dishonest.
It's totally dishonest.
It's not dishonest.
They didn't part ways. They fired him.
Unless you're in the room and you know what was said, then it's not.
Well, hold on. No. See, this is where you go. You don't actually believe that. You're just saying it to buttress your argument.
I do believe in some respect. I'm not saying if I believe it in this respect. What I'll say is this: in some respects, I do believe it when that term comes up, I do believe
It's possible. Sure. No.
Wait. Let me say this. If you have years left on your contract, okay, or a year or years left on your contract, they're going to have to pay you some sort of settlement, unless they fire you for cause. Okay. Now, losing, unfortunately, in sports, I don't think is constitutes.
It's not.
Correct. So, if they agree to part ways to give him some sort of settlement to let him not be the coach anymore because they are not firing him for cause, then they have agreed to part ways. You didn't get fired. They want you to leave so badly.
No, you got fired. You just didn't get fired for cause.
They want you to leave so badly, they're willing to pay you money not to coach their team. You have agreed to accept that, then you have parted ways.
You've been fired. Just not for cause.
Well, that's not necessarily.
Or not for cause. I mean, the way these contracts are usually
performance.
The way these contracts are usually, what you just said is mostly true.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I mean, Ira, you're just wrong, but that's okay. You're having a hard time with it.
I don't know how you figure I'm wrong on that.
Because what I was about to say is that the way these contracts usually go, all you have to do is pay attention and read the articles, is if you get fired for lack of wins, you can still be fired. You just get paid. The only ways that you don't get paid, or if there's some sort of behavioral or what they're called in the contract is like moral turpitude or something like that. If you do something to, like you said, bring disgrace to the university or something like that, then they'll withhold your money. And sometimes they'll try to do that kind of on trumped-up charges like the ones with Kevin Ollie at UConn, where they tried to withhold his money and they fired him because he had some minor NCAA violation, when in the meantime they let his predecessor coach there, for 3 or 4 years beyond, major NCAA violations, and didn't remove him at all because he was winning. So Mike Dunleavy fired.
Okay, whatever.
Marvin Menzies fired.
Can we talk about something much more important?
Whatever you want, buddy. Go for it.
A tournament.
Yeah, are we allowed to now?
Well, yeah, we were allowed to the whole time.
Well, why don't you tee it up?
All right. First of all, do you agree with the fact that there are 3 ACC teams as number 1 seeds when North Carolina has the same record as Michigan State? Michigan State won the Big Ten championship. They are not a number 1 seed. That's my first thing that I noticed about the bracket that I did not care for.
I could count the times that I watched North Carolina play this year, and Virginia, all those teams, North Carolina, Virginia. I did see a little bit of Duke, I suppose. Michigan State, no.
I didn't watch any of
I have no idea.
But I know that both of those conferences, one of them got 7, one of them got 8 teams in. So they're comparable conferences. That they're tough. That those are 2 blue blood teams. I just don't know how you leave out Michigan State from being number 1 seed. Now, so that brings me to question number 2. And you certainly are a lot smarter than me because you're the one with the law degree. Let me ask you this. They rank the number 1 seeds, right? Like Duke is the number 1 overall seed. Okay?
Yeah.
So am I correct or incorrect in saying that the way they rig it up is that the number one gets to play the number 4 number 2?
I think that's right. I think it's a snake situation.
Okay. So then how, not only did Michigan State not get the number 1 seed, which a lot of people thought was a good possibility, they are in the bracket with Duke, which would say that they're the 8th best team in the country, being the 4th best number 2.
Well, here's the deal. I think you're right that it does go in sort of that snaked way.
Okay.
However, if they have to move somebody around to not violate one of their other rules about people playing at home or about
I don't believe any of that applies here.
Stuff with conferences, you'd have to really look at it. Because you can't be on the same side of the bracket, preferably on the same side of the bracket as somebody in your conference. And since all these teams have
multiple,
like 7 or 8, that's a really hard one to keep straight. They don't want a conference matchup in the second round.
Well,
so go look at the second round.
Except for the fact that you've got in the second round, you said?
Yeah, they try to avoid conference matchups.
Except that Michigan State, the team.
Actually, I think they try to avoid them until the Elite Eight.
Yeah, except for the team in question here, Michigan State. And I love Michigan State because their coach is the best coach. They play Bradley in the first round. Guess who they would play in the second round?
Tell me.
The winner of the game between Rick Pitino's former team, Louisville, and Richie Pitino's Minnesota Gophers, which would mean they would play a Big Ten team if Minnesota wins. Boom. NCAA, what the hell are you doing?
Really? That's the second round matchup?
I love the first round matchup. I love the storyline of Richie Pitino against his dad's old school. But,
no, I love that one. But
yeah, but I'm saying
I didn't realize that. So wait a minute. How many Big Ten teams?
I believe there's 8 Big Ten teams and 7 ACC teams.
Well, if there's
I
8,
have that backwards, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, if there's 8,
right? There's 8, and there's 2 Big Ten teams.
Yeah.
Per section.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Except there's 3 in that, and except there's 3 in the Duke bracket.
I've never seen that before, Ira.
Don't forget about Maryland is now Big Ten. Maryland, Minnesota, and Michigan State, the 3 M's of basketball. It's like the 5 D's of dodgeball.
Yeah, I've never seen it before that.
It's weird.
And in the top half of that bracket, there is no Big Ten team. So I don't know how many,
Yeah, it's wacky. And I think
did they talk about that? Was that talked about on the show?
I didn't listen to that much analysis, but not that I heard. But it's something that the Eye on Sports is always keeping his eye on. Shenanigans. I'm calling shenanigans on that one. But anyway, you look at Duke's possible run to a Final Four. It's looks pretty good for them unless they have to meet Michigan State.
What, you don't like UCF over Duke?
No, and I don't think Mississippi State, Liberty, Virginia Tech, or St. Louis could beat them either. Now, you go down to the other part of the bracket. What do you think about 2 teams Memphis played this year? LSU without Will Wade and without Smart.
No, Smart may be back.
Yeah. Playing Yale, a team that can put up some points.
Yeah, they can.
Like, we remember they played Memphis, and we went to overtime, and that was like 100 to something, 100 to 100, whatever. And they scored 97 yesterday on Harvard. So we know they can score points. They shoot a lot of threes. They got Bobby Phills, rest in peace, his son.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to beat LSU, but I think they could give them some run, to be honest with you. And I think LSU's going to go down to whoever they have to play now.
I think LSU will be out early, whether it's Yale.
Second round.
Yeah, whether it's Yale or Maryland. Yeah, Yale first round. Or, Belmont Temple over Maryland.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, Maryland with a 10-loss team, they could go down easily.
One of my
who's your sleeper, Ira?
So I haven't decided.
Georgia State.
I haven't decided on a sleeper yet. We're not over on Georgia State's side yet.
Oh, we're going east to west.
Across.
You go however you want.
We'll go to the south and we'll go across.
All right.
We'll go to Virginia. I mean, there's just nothing really that compelling on that on any of these brackets so much. I'll tell you what's compelling to me. What could be a very interesting situation would be Villanova and St. Mary's. I think it'd be a very interesting game. Villanova's had an up and down season. They did pull out the Big East championship, but St. Mary's is pretty good. That could be an interesting game. Of course, Seth Davis is picking Oregon to beat Wisconsin and UC Irvine to beat Kansas State. He might be right on one of those, but I tend to not want to go against Kansas State, even though one of their good players is hurt. I like Kansas State. I don't trust Virginia, and I don't think the committee does either, which is why I think they put them to play against the winner of the Ole Miss Oklahoma game. 2 teams that are not so good.
I'm surprised Oklahoma's in the field. I haven't seen a lot of them either, but I saw they got knocked out early in the Big 12 tournament. I see they have 13 losses, but they're in the field.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, congratulations to Kermit Davis.
I mean, great hire. There you go. Hey, how about this? Cincinnati.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Cincinnati. First of all, I was not surprised that Cincinnati beat Houston. It was, they're a good team. Houston is good, But Cincinnati, the way they play,
just doesn't feel like they have enough scoring.
They don't. They play good defense too. And they got length. They're just a solid team. But Mick Cronin, whether you like him or not, he's a great coach. And Tennessee has to play Colgate. A friend of the show, he went to Colgate, and he's excited. But I think Tennessee kills them. But I don't know if I see Tennessee going past either Iowa or Cincinnati, to be honest with you.
Say that again? You don't think Tennessee gets out of the second round?
I'm not sure they do.
I don't think either of those teams have enough.
Rick Barnes is their coach.
I don't think either. Yeah, I hear you, but I don't think either of those teams has enough offensive firepower. I haven't seen Iowa.
Well, they got Fran McCaffrey. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Tennessee's so tough. Although they did get rolled in the SEC tournament final, which was a little surprising. They were favored in that game.
Yeah.
Dropped it by 20. So, somebody's found a flaw in them, and it's their former coach, Bruce Pearl. He found it. I don't know what it is. I think it's three-point shooting, apparently.
Yeah.
That's according to our Tennessee expert down in Tijuana.
Tijuana Ted, the Tennessee expert?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'll be rooting like hell for whoever comes out of that Cincinnati-Iowa game.
I know you will.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah? What are you doing over there?
I got some things going on. I'm looking at my bracket. I'm looking at that North Carolina-Iona game and just wondering, does Jeff Ruland still coach Iona?
No. I wonder that myself every time they play, actually.
Yeah.
I love old Jeff Ruland.
Ira, are we taking a second break?
Yeah, I'm trying to work on that right now.
Yeah, I need one. But, no, it's an interesting bracket. Auburn they grabbed that 5th seed. They play New Mexico State. Mexico State's sort of a routine.
The Aggies?
Yeah, they appear routinely.
It's like the last shuffling realignment situation. They've been dominating the WAC.
I can't wait to see how early Kansas goes out.
Are they in the WAC or the mid Mountain West or whatever?
They're in the
WAC.
Yeah, I think they're in the whackety whack.
Whackety whack.
Yeah.
Talk back.
So anyway, folks, we will continue with our bracket breakdown. I guess we do have to talk a little bit about the Express and how they made. Well, we should talk a little bit about the signing anyway. Maybe not about the team.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We do have to talk about the other two brackets in brief.
Yeah,
we'll really get into the brackets tomorrow when Mark's here for sure.
The True Guru will bring the.
Grizzlies had a huge scoring game, but they lost to the Wizards over the weekend. Did you see the score of that game?
No.
It was like 128 to 135. Like in regular.
They're clicking. They're clicking.
Or something. Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Yep.
Ion Sports with Bball Jones, AM 1600, AM 730, YouTube Live.
Yep. Be right back.
This is Ira Lipsy from the 1 p.m. show with Jay and Ira. I'm here to tell you about Fred Blows. Fred Blows is the man if you want to buy a car. I don't want to go car shopping, so what I did was I called Fred, told him what I wanted, how much I wanted to spend, and within a couple of hours he called me up, said, I've got your car. I'm going to bring it by your office, and you can check it out. It was that simple. Jay Brenner's going to tell you how to get in touch with Fred.
Fred did the same thing for me, made the car buying process seamless and hassle-free. With Fred, it's not about the car, it's about the relationship. He is at Bluff City, Jaguar Land Rover, but he'll find you anything, new, used, any make, any model. You can contact him at 901-848-5851. That's 901-848-5851, Fred Blows.
Hi there. Are you a large person, pleasantly plump, a little on the hefty side perhaps? Well, let's face it. Are you fat? When you go jogging, do you leave potholes? When you make love, do you have to give directions? At the zoo, do elephants throw you peanuts? Do you look at a menu and say, okay? Well, now you can eat all you want. Because at
I'm good.
fat stores, we've got you covered. Right.
Thanks.
Woolen, And woolen blend suits and sport coats in all the larger sizes. Husky, stout, extra stout, and the new Hindenburg line. And for you ladies, we have caftans, boo-boos, and our own exclusive A-frame in all colors and patterns. Yes, we have miles and miles of fabric. So take it from me, Thornton Mellon. If you want to look thin, you hang out with fat people.
Thornton Mellon's Tall and Fat, 150 locations across America.
Yeah, if that dress had pockets, you'd look like a pool table. You should try my tall and fat stores. No offense.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Eye on Sports. Ira Lipsy here with Bball Jones, Jay Brenner. The true guru, Mark Kaplan, is busy in the world of insurance, so he is not with us today.
What do you got here, Ira?
Otis Redding, Day Tripper.
Was that his originally or the Beatles? Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty good cover. Everybody loves Otis.
Ira, you know who I thought?
Otis, my man.
I was unhappy to see these two teams in the same rough quadrant. They would meet in the Sweet 16. Was Houston and Kentucky. I was unhappy because I think both of them have the opportunity to really make a run, and one of them will be out before the Elite Eight, if not both. That could happen, I guess. But your boy,
you're looking at the the Midwest.
Yeah, down at the bottom of the right side of the bracket.
So again, yeah, look. I mean, Utah. I mean, not Utah. North Carolina. If they should win their first game against Iona, they should not get much of a challenge from Utah State or Washington. I keep up a little bit with some of that West Coast action. They're just not. I mean, they're okay. Where they're going to get in trouble is that Sweet 16 possible.
Auburn, Kansas.
Yeah, it's possible. Now, Georgia State. I love my Georgia State Panthers. Congratulations to Big Ron Hunter for another trip to the NCAA tournament. That's what they brought him in from Ooey Pooey for, to get to the tournament. I believe this is his third tournament.
At least his second, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, they went to one with his son.
And when he broke his ankle or whatever.
He tore his Achilles, and then I think this is 3 or 4 out of like 5 or 6 years for them. But they're going to play Houston, and I got to be honest with you, as a Georgia State fan and someone who's very familiar with Houston,
it's not happening.
It's not happening. I mean, Georgia State's center is like 6'6".
Yeah,
and Houston's got some length and height, and I don't think.
I think Houston's obvious flaw is if they run up against a physical team, physical at all, they can sort of go into these scoring droughts, I guess. That's what Memphis put on them at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Then Cincinnati beat them like a drum in the final. I was surprised at that, Ira. I know you weren't. I was, because Houston's so damn good. Like, I watched them absolutely dismantle UConn in the quarters. And I know UConn's terrible. And then they looked so good against Memphis. But, you look at a team, it's so hard on paper to look at these games and be like, oh, this is what's going to happen. I mean, unless you watch so much of it that you know what these matchups are going to look like. And I don't. So, I have no idea. Houston could lose that first game. I mean, you say they can. I'll take your word for it. They could go to the Final Four. They're that athletic, and that's what I want for the conference and for Kelvin Sampson, that program. But I got to tell you, I root for Kentucky. I root for Calipari. I'd like to see him go to the Final Four. I'd like to see him get another ring. Cash register? Take it to the bank?
No, or get ready to pay some more players.
Ring it up? Yeah, well, they all do that. And who are you kidding?
Why do you root for Calipari in Kentucky?
Because I like him. First of all, I think he's a good coach. I think he's underrated as a coach. He's not a great – I mean, it's obvious. He's not a great in-game adjustment coach. He never has been. But he gets his teams playing well for March. And he usually gets them to play pretty well in these tournaments. Even when – and I know he's had insane levels of talent at Kentucky. But even in years when he didn't have the most talent, He would go on runs. I like him. I like what he does, and I've always sort of liked Kentucky before he got there. So, as opposed to like a North Carolina, if you look at the Blue Bloods, Duke, North Carolina, Michigan State, Kentucky, one of those teams, if not 2 or 3, are going to be in the Final Four. I didn't even look at the brackets, but to tell you, Duke and Michigan State aren't both going to be there, but or even Michigan. And I like Michigan a little bit.
I like Michigan.
Because I like Beeline, and I like the way they play. But so there's just certain Blue Bloods I can root for and certain ones that I can't or that I don't get excited about.
Okay.
I don't root against Duke or North Carolina, but I don't get excited about them.
I agree.
Same with Michigan State. It's like, okay, they're great. They do nothing for me.
See, I really think that Tom Izzo is the best coach, and you don't really ever hear about his play, like the players. Very rarely
That's true.
are you hearing about, like if you think back
not since Mateen Cleaves has it really been about the players. No, you're right.
Right. You think back to the Mateen Cleaves year in like 2000. That was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He never has a team where you're talking about like all these McDonald's All-Americans, even though they do. Even though he has,
you're right. You just
they're
don't
not like the high profile.
Why is that?
That's the type of guy he wants. He wants a guy that's going to be selfless.
But they're McDonald's All-American
Right,
guys.
but there's a difference. If you're a kid like Zion Williamson, and I'm not saying anything bad about Williamson, he seems like he's a great kid. He hadn't been in trouble with anything. He looks like he's going to be a really nice, charismatic, fun-loving NBA type player, like what Shaq was, or like what Dwight Howard started out being. Fun guy. Okay. But they have charisma. They're like constantly being told, you're a McDonald's All-American. You're great. You can either be, like this, like a heel, or you can be a babyface. Well, Williamson's a babyface. The guys that are the McDonald's All-Americans that seem to go to the Michigan State, those are the guys that are like, they're on the undercard.
Yeah.
They don't seem to have personality in a good way or a bad way. They're just, hey, we got to fill out the team. These are some of the best players in America. But you probably don't ever hear about them unless you live in their city, or you follow the school they're going to go to.
Yeah,
which I love because Izzo makes it about the team, and they don't have tremendous NBA success historically. They've had some guys.
Well, let's think who are their best guys. Zebo.
Okay, Jason Richardson was good.
Jaren Jackson Jr.
Okay, but Adrian Payne was like a big-time college star.
Yeah.
He's struggling to find his way. Cleaves was not an NBA player.
Not of any note.
Successful.
Right. Steve Smith,
that's before.
That was Judd Heathcote. Yeah, we're probably missing several.
Well, I'm not saying we're not. Yeah, we're missing several that were NBA players, but if they were stars of the NBA, you wouldn't be missing them probably. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I love Tom Izzo. I think he's a really good coach, and
now for me it's Kentucky.
Yeah.
Miles Bridges, Draymond Green.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Denzel Valentine.
Yeah.
Draymond's the one we missed.
Draymond's is probably his biggest star, and really a lot of his stardom comes from the fact that he was a second-round pick, and then he went to a team that was winning championships right off the bat. So,
yeah, and he may have played. He may have played more than. He was not like a one and done. So that's
correct.
to your
point.
point.
He was a one and done. Yeah, correct.
He may have been in the NCAA for
a couple of years.
Yeah.
So
anyway, whatever. I like Kentucky. That's my team.
Okay, great.
Kansas.
Sorry, that was me jumping out of the window.
That was loud.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's all right. And the AAC, I'll root for those teams. So I'd like to see Fran Dunphy make a run.
Oh, that would be awesome. You know who else I'd like to see make a run? Except I don't think it could happen. Oh, yeah, it could. I'd like to see St. John's win.
Yes.
Their play-in game.
Chris Mullen.
Yeah, I want to see Mullen pull off a couple of maneuvers. And I think they tried to rig up that Buffalo-Arizona State matchup between Hurley and the former team.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I think St. John's wins, and I think they beat Buffalo. And you'll see an interesting matchup between Texas Tech and St. John's if Texas Tech can get by the Norsemen.
Yeah. In addition to St. John's, there's some other programs that have some history of March that are back.
Yeah.
I like seeing that. St. Louis. I was just up in the Lou, and drove by that campus. Actually,
as soon as this show's over, I'm gonna be up in the Lou.
I know you are. As soon as this show's over, I'm going to be speeding over to the office. Get out of my way.
I'm hoping maybe tomorrow or Wednesday I'm going to get. Not only is he Memphis's #1 Northern Kentucky fan that I know of, he might be the only one. Period. So there's a guy that I'm buddies with is a big Northern Kentucky fan.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get him to call the show, break down the matchup for us, because we did play Texas Tech. There are a lot of teams Memphis played in this tournament. So
yeah, but I like seeing historically, relevant programs back on the stage. St. John's would be there. Obviously, St. Louis. Murray State back in the tournament. They are a frequent guest in the tournament. Minnesota, as you mentioned, the Golden Gophers.
I'm going to be interested to see Murray State a little bit because I haven't seen them this year. I haven't seen this Jay Morant guy.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be really damn good.
And their opponent, Marquette, former conference mate of Memphis.
Yeah.
Ira, while the music's playing before we go, your thoughts on Johnny Football to the Express?
Yeah, we didn't get into that too much. Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel coming to the Memphis Express. I've actually heard a lot of people already saying, I'm getting tickets no matter what. I want to see this. Either it's going to be great or it'll be a train wreck, and we can't wait. I'm sure there are a lot of people that can't wait to see him around town and try and buy him drinks and stuff like that. People love seeing that type of situation. I'm like, you know what? It's a 20-something-year-old guy that can play football. Barely, he's hanging on. He wants to play in the half. Good luck to him. Good luck to the team. The season's almost over, and the Express needs something. So,
hey, based on what I know about Johnny Football, don't buy him drinks, people.
Yeah, I agree. Let him.
Yeah, point him to the library. Get him a library card.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, quick retro news shout out.
Please.
One of my all-time favorites. Former disgraced Miss America, Vanessa Williams. Happy birthday. 56. She still looks fantastic. What? Why
yeah.
not?
No, we like her. She's a friend of the show.
Oh, she's beautiful. And Elvin from The Cosby Show. Remember he was a subject of controversy recently?
Yeah.
People saw him like he was...
He wasn't the only one on The Cosby Show under controversy.
He was bagging groceries at Whole Foods, and people were like, that's Elvin from The Cosby Show.
Trader Joe's, please.
Trader Joe's. What the hell ever. Same difference. All right, 10 seconds left. Jay, thank you. Get your voice.
You're welcome.
Tomorrow we're going to have a real heated debate about these brackets and getting ready for the tournament. We're out of here. Goodbye.
Good morning. Good morning. This is the old Trailblazer broadcast, Pastor Albert Pendarvis, the old Trailblazer. Yes, we're picking up God. Look us up there on our web. We have all of these tapes listed there, the prices. We also have the catalog for our radio Bible and book.